In part 3 of our special series, Boko Haram, Terror Unmasked, how the terrorist group has hijacked Islam to justify their brutality. The travel ban waiting game. African asylum seekers ready to board a plane to the U.S. are sent back to refugee camps in Kenya. And why Germany is moving to expand investments in Africa. Africa 54 starts right now. Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent Makori. This is Africa 54. Tonight we begin our broadcast in Somalia, where amid heavy security in Mogadishu, the second round of voting in the nation's presidential election ended a short time ago, with 3 candidates still in the running. The remaining candidates in the race are incumbent President Hassan Sheikh Mahmoud, former Prime Minister Mohamed Abdullahi Farmajo, and former President Sheikh Sharif Sheikh Ahmed. The election is taking place amid accusations of rampant corruption. Candidates are alleged to have given cash and gifts to lawmakers in exchange for votes, with one candidate reportedly paying more than $1.3 million. The voting follows months of delays and threats from Islamist insurgents bent on derailing the process. Well, now to the continuing controversy surrounding U.S. President Donald Trump's executive order banning entry into the United States individuals from 7 Muslim-majority countries. The legalities of the order now rests with a federal appeals court. VOA's Richard Green has more on the Trump administration's efforts to overturn a restraining order that temporarily halts the initiative.
A 3-judge panel of the 9th Circuit Court of Appeals in San Francisco heard oral arguments Tuesday from opposing lawyers during a telephone conference call that was live streamed over the internet and broadcast on cable television news.
How many federal offenses have we had being committed by people who came in with visas from these countries? And the ultimate was the answer was there haven't been any.
Yes, Your Honor. These proceedings have been moving quite fast, and we're doing the best we can. I can
You're saying that the proceedings are moving fast, but you appealed to us before you continued in the district court to develop the record. So why should we be hearing this now if it sounds like you're trying to say you're going to present other evidence later?
There have been a number of people from Somalia connected to al-Shabaab who have been convicted in the United States.
Is that in the record? Can you point us to where in the record you're referring?
It is not in the record. There has also been other examples, but again, you're correct. These are not in the record.
The judges also challenged arguments by Noah Purcell, the chief lawyer for the state of Washington, which filed a lawsuit against the travel ban along with Minnesota. Purcell maintained the ban is unconstitutional because it specifically targets Muslims.
But the point is that that was clearly a motivating, what we have alleged, and again, yes it is, we do have to show a likelihood of success, but at this stage the case law is clear, our plausible allegations are taken as true for assessing that likelihood of success.
Wait a minute, that cannot possibly be true. We are supposed to take your word for it, the fact that you make an allegation of the complaint and that equals likelihood of success? You don't really mean that, do you?
Rory Fleming, a law professor with the University of California, said he does not think the judges were persuaded by the government's overall argument.
So, I mean, on balance, it doesn't sound like the court is going to grant the motion to vacate the stay. They might try to narrow that, or they might deny the motion and send it back to the trial court to narrow it, which strikes me as probably the more strategic decision.
The 3-court panel said it would issue a ruling as soon as possible. Immigrants have been streaming into the U.S. since the lower court suspended the travel ban last Friday. Opponents say if the ban is restored, it may trigger mass confusion and chaos at many of the nation's airports, just as it did when it was first imposed on January 27th. Hundreds of people were detained by customs officers at airports, and some of them were deported. That action sparked nationwide protests and prompted legal action on many fronts. Professor Fleming said no matter what happens at the federal appeals court, the case is likely to go all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. The court has been evenly divided between 4 liberal-leaning justices and 4 conservative-leaning ones since the death last year of Justice Antonin Scalia. Richard Green, VOA News, Washington.
Well, confusion reigns in Kenya over the status of the temporary U.S. travel ban. Although a U.S. federal judge put the ban on hold, Somalia and Sudanese refugees ready to fly to America are being sent back to the Kakuma and Dadaab refugee camps. The refugees further along in the U.S. immigration process are worried, but have not lost hope of the ban being lifted. VOA's Jill Craig has our report.
President Trump's travel ban and its legal challenges have caused much anxiety in the Kenyan refugee camps of Kakuma and Dadaab, where those slated for resettlement in the United States are now unsure of their futures. Trump has argued the measures are necessary to keep the country safe from terrorism. Refugee organizations say refugees are already vigorously vetted. Here in Kakuma, Sudanese refugee Michael Abukasim Kuku was scheduled to fly to the Refugee Processing Center in Nairobi on January 30th. From there, he was to join his wife in Des Moines, Iowa, but the ban prevented his departure.
I really felt bad, and it really affected me. When I was told the ban was there and we were not supposed to go, then that really gave me a hard time.
Another Sudanese refugee was also scheduled to fly to Nairobi on January 30th for processing, and then on to his new home in Tucson, Arizona. But he remains here.
I want to go to America because my homeland is still in war, and we are just living with no hope. So when I go to America, I might be able to go to school.
Ahmed Omar Bihi has lived in refugee camps since 1992, when he fled warfare in Somalia. Bihi was told to expect his U.S. resettlement before March, but now he can only hope for the best.
I hope Mr. Trump is changing his mind and the law will be prevailed in order to release us from this harsh life.
Another Somali refugee told VOA she was in Nairobi, awaiting her flight to St. Louis when she was sent back to Dadaab to await U.S. legal decisions. A request for response from the IOM was not immediately returned. A State Department spokesperson said the processing of refugees is ongoing in Nairobi, including for travel to the United States. The spokesperson for UNHCR Kenya says the UN Refugee Agency recognizes the fluidity of the situation, but that it is continuing to resettle refugees in the United States while legal issues are being resolved. Jill Craig, VOA News, Kakuma, Kenya.
Well, Kenyan investigators have arrested the former chief executive of the Electoral Commission and two others in dawn raids Wednesday, the latest twist in a scandal that has already led to Britain's first conviction of a company for foreign bribery. Now, former election official James Oswago was charged in court with receiving bribes from Trevi Oyumbra, the agent for British firm Smith and Osman Limited, a printing firm that won contracts to print election material in the past elections. The man appeared in court with Hamida Ali, who covered her face with a golden veil. As prosecutors allege, she facilitated payments using her bank account. President Uhuru Kenyatta is under increasing pressure to curb endemic corruption before the August elections. His administration has been engulfed by financial scandals. However, Wednesday's arrests concerned contracts signed before Kenyatta took office. Now today, Voice of America is broadcasting the third installment of a four-part broadcast series, Boko Haram, Terror and Masked, that provides an unprecedented look inside one of the world's deadliest extremist groups. This VOA series draws on 18 hours of raw video recorded by Boko Haram and obtained by VOA. VOA journalists spend months reviewing and translating the videos and traveling to northeast Nigeria to provide additional in-depth reporting. Boko Haram has left a trail of death and destruction, all in the name of religion. In part 3 of the series, titled Hijacking Islam, Boko Haram video shows leaders justifying killings and other atrocities based on their distorted religious ideology. Viewer discretion is advised.
At a public tribunal,
Boko Haram prepares to execute two of its own. The charge? Homosexuality. A messenger steps forward. He speaks for Abubakar Shekau, the Boko Haram leader in hiding. Within the hour, the men will be dead. The video, obtained exclusively by VOA, is part of a cache of recordings made by Boko Haram that show leaders justifying such killings and other atrocities on a violent deviation from mainstream Islamic thought. Khalifa Aliyu Abdul Fathi is the leading Sufi scholar in Maiduguri, birthplace of Boko Haram.
Sun kashe mata, sun kashe yara ƙanana, sun kashe wanda ba ruwansu, sun kashe Kiristan a cocinsu, sun kashe su a gidajensu.
Northern Nigeria has for centuries been an important crossroads for Islamic thought. Boko Haram's radical roots trace to the preaching of one man, Muhammad Yusuf. In the 1990s, Yusuf broke from an influential mentor in Maiduguri, denouncing Western education and government as un-Islamic. Young, disenfranchised Nigerians, some in criminal gangs, were drawn to his charisma. In 2009, hundreds of Yusuf's followers were killed by police after a spate of violence. Police captured and executed Yusuf in the street outside their headquarters. For a time, his followers melted away, then came back in search of revenge. The group took an official name, People Committed to the Propagation of the Prophet's Teachings and Jihad, or more popularly, Boko Haram, for Western education is forbidden. Years of violence followed. In Mamudo, they burned a high school with students inside. In Madala, they bombed a Catholic church on Christmas Day. In Kano, a suicide attack killed 120 worshippers praying at a mosque. Then in 2014, an act that brought global condemnation, kidnapping 276 girls from a Chibok school, most of whom remain captive. Shekau, the group's leader, said the girls shouldn't have been in school. God instructed me to sell them. They are his properties and I will carry out his instructions. Ibrahim Muhammad Duguri, a leading scholar of Sunni Islam in Abuja, says such acts are absolutely forbidden.
Ba za a kashe tsofaffi ba, ba za a kashe yara ba, ba za a kashe mata ba, ba za a sare itatuwa ba masu amfani, ba kuma za a ainihin wato kona guraren ibada ba, ko da ba na musulmi ba ne. But
the Boko Haram videos obtained by VOA show them flogging a boy, executing an old disabled man, and chopping off hands during tribunals, all in the name of Allah. The brutality is so extreme that it has carved a rift even inside Boko Haram. A new faction, led by Mamman Nur, once a deputy of Yusuf, now claims Shekau is too violent. The schism erupted this summer as government troops regained territory from Boko Haram. But nearly 2 million refugees remain and Boko Haram is still active in rural areas. Abdul Fathi said Islam must resolve its internal differences or groups like Boko Haram will persist. If we don't stop this hate among us, we will be done with Boko Haram, he says. But we will be dealing with another group with a different name. Next, ruin and recovery. from Boko Haram.
Well, Boko Haram's purpose, as stated by its longtime leader, Abu Bakr Shekau, is to wage a holy war, ridding Nigeria of any Western influences and creating a strict Islamic state. In practice, the group has shown no mercy for Nigerian Muslims, attacking mosques and majority Muslim towns. Boko Haram's leader believes that attacking civilian targets, kidnapping schoolgirls and killing so-called unbelievers, whether they are Muslim or not, is justified in the name of jihad or holy war. Religious scholars in Nigeria emphatically reject Boko Haram's violent theology. Well, joining me now is Razak A. Oyemade. He's a Muslim cleric from Nigeria to discuss Boko Haram's distorted religious ideology. Welcome to our program, Imam.
Thank you.
Now, first, we've listened a lot to some of the clerics from Nigeria, and they're saying what Boko Haram is teaching is completely distorted. As a person who's been following this and studying their teachings, what is it that makes them win the hearts and minds of those who follow them?
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا ما يهده إلا فلا مضل له وما يضلل فلا هادي له أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. Firstly, we give thanks to Almighty Allah for the opportunity that we have today for me to be able to discuss what Boko Haram has been doing. Number one, Boko Haram is in Islamic view, in the Quran, in Sunnah of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is forbidding. What they are doing, their teachings are totally wrong. Islam teaches every mankind have to have a mercy. You have to have a good manners to your fellow human being. It doesn't matter any kind of tribe, religion, or anything you belong to. If you are a human being, you have to be treated very, very well. That is
but
what
what
Islam.
is it in their approach that makes them, in fact, successfully among some people hijack the teachings of Islam and win these people over? What is it that they have managed to do?
Well, I think one of the things is I would take everything from the parents, because when the parents they did not have money, they kind of financially not really handicapped, but they don't have education, and where their community is also part of what lead them down to that very environment. Because in Islam, tell that the first thing you have to do is the parent, you have to teach your child about Islam. That is one thing you have to first do. Number two is you tell, if you want to leave your child out to any clergy person, you have to know what kind of clergy person you have to leave your child to.
So what you're saying here is that if they haven't been taught properly, they can fall into the hands of somebody else who will teach them some things that are twisted. Is there something in the Quran that a person can take and distort and use to kind of convert people into what Boko Haram has become? But is there something in the Quran they are using?
Well, there are some things based on the way you understand it.
Yeah.
For you to be able to be a kind of person that have to interpret Quran, you have to have a knowledgeable about the Quran. Yeah. Not only reading the Quran, or you can speak it, or you can read. You can only give in 10 minutes. The meaning of it, no. For example, Almighty Allah said in the Quran, "A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, bismillahir rahmanir rahim." He said, "Wabtaghi fima ataka Allahu daral akhirah wa la tansa nasibaka minad dunya."
Say it in English because we can understand.
Fahasin kama ahsana Allahu ilayka wa la tabghi fasada fil ardi inna Allaha la yudadil muslimin. Almighty Allah said, "Wabtaghi fima ataka Allahu daral akhirah." Whatever you have, use what you have to seek for your heaven. Okay. Number two, you have to do right.
Yeah, but they believe they're doing right. They do believe they're doing that. And that's our biggest question here is, what is it in the Quran that they are using to convince these followers that they're doing right? In fact, they die with the belief that they're going to gain life in heaven and get a reward. Is there something that they can successfully use
There's
to
nothing,
distort Islam?
there is nothing like that in the Quran.
Yeah.
That if you kill yourself or you sacrifice your soul for that, you're going to inherit the year after. Nothing like that.
Yeah.
Any soul that is being shared, either you do it intentionally or accidentally do it, you're going to get account for that. That is what Islam teaches. No soul should be killed.
Mm-hmm. Now, very quickly, are they succeeding mostly among very young people, or in Nigeria you have had cases where even older men have been convinced to follow this kind of beliefs?
I think it's like it's between both ways. It goes both ways because their major target is they know that the kids they let loose, but the adult ones they are kind of like they can easily get away from them. So the kids, when the kids get loose, they take them, they adjust them to different environment that parents cannot be able to have access to them.
Okay, we appreciate and definitely. It's really a sad event, and it's so sad to see religion being used in this way. Imam Oyemade, we do thank you very much for your insights. Imam Razak A. Oyemade is a Muslim cleric from Nigeria. Now, in December, Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari pronounced Boko Haram done for when VOA went to northeast Nigeria to investigate secret Boko Haram videos. We obtained the massive humanitarian and security challenges that remain evident everywhere in Thursday's Part 4 of our series, A Terror Unmasked. We hear these stories in hopes of Nigerians who survived. Viewer discretion is advised. And for more details on our special report series on Boko Haram, visit voanews.com. We want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we covered during the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We also are streaming our show live on Facebook, so check us out and share our show with your friends. And also check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Find me on Twitter at VOA Vince Makori. Well, coming up now, we'll look at why Germans expanding investment in Africa. Stay with us.
How do you see the world?
I see countries in turmoil.
I see our planet changing.
I see people at peace.
No matter how you see the world, you'll get an unbiased and uncensored view of it on Voice of America. On television, radio, online, and mobile. In more than 40 languages all day, every day. Millions of people tune us in.
How do I see the world? On Voice of America.
Well, in today's business news, German investment looks to ramp up in Africa. With more details, Africa 54 business correspondent Jill Malandrino reports from the NASDAQ market site in New York.
China continues to make headlines when it comes to foreign direct investment in Africa. It's no secret that the continent's abundant resources and growing population make an attractive place to bet on growth. In fact, Africa is the world's second fastest growing economy after East Asia. Today, we turn to Germany to explore its intention with FDI in Africa. The German African Business Summit kicks off today through the 10th in Nairobi to focus on Africa's economic potential and discuss future trends in African-German cooperation. Africa is a continent of not only great opportunity, but also of risk. And because of this, historically, German companies are often concerned about political stability, despite an increasing number of democratic elections, and about planning reliability and protection of private property. But that is changing with investment protection treaties in Nigeria, Ghana, Ivory Coast, Kenya, and Angola. Thanks to subsidies, South Africa remains an important production site for BMW, Daimler-Benz, and Volkswagen in emerging economies to this day. Countries like Nigeria and Kenya are keen to follow this example. An important area of investment includes renewable energy. 2/3 of Africans still have no electricity, yet there is no shortage or sun of wind on the continent. There's also a need for modernization in the healthcare sector, in environmental technology, and in agriculture. Publication called Deutschland points out, alongside their primary business, German companies are also involved in numerous initiatives aimed at supporting the African economy and combating poverty, like vocational training. Germany's successful dual vocational training model is also As an example, to serve in Africa at the same time, Germans benefit from collaboration with local partners who enable them to access new markets. Local shareholders are essential in some of these countries. From the NASDAQ market site in New York, I'm Jill Malandrino, and this is Africa 54 Business News.
Well, thanks a lot, Jill. It's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54. We take you to Silicon Valley to show you Apple's new spaceship headquarters. We'll be right back.
If you've just joined us, I'm Mariama Diallo, and here is a quick recap of today's headline. Liberian President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf bars official visits abroad for 2 months following protests over soaring prices. In Somalia, fears of attack by the Al-Shabaab Islamic militants limit the presidential election to the country's legislators, who vote at a heavily guarded former Air Force base in the capital. Kenyan investigators arrest the former chief executive of the Electoral Commission and 2 others in dawn raids in connection to a voting scandal. In Nigeria, international airlines refuse to fly to a different hub while the airport serving Nigeria's capital shuts down for repairs. That's all for today. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Welcome back to Africa 54. Here's what's trending. Madonna has been granted permission to adopt 2 more children from Malawi after the High Court gave its approval. The entertainer's previous adoption stirred anger among some Malawians who accused the government of allowing the pop star to skirt laws that ban non-residents from adopting children. Madonna was inside the courtroom when the approval ruling was delivered. There are no details on the children's she is planning to adopt. Now, Madonna adopted Malawian children David Banda and Mercy James in 2006 and 2009. Well, next up in Silicon Valley, this building is nicknamed the Spaceship. This is Apple's new home in Cupertino, California. Apple's founder Steve Jobs oversaw the design of the campus that features details that are iPhone-esque. For example, a facade containing the world's largest piece of curved glass. Apple employees say even the elevator buttons remind them of the iPhone's home button, and the toilets seem to mirror the device's square shape with rounded corners. Jobs unveiled the plans of Apple campus to just 2 months before he died in 2011. And that is what's trending, and that is our show for today. Have a good night.
Welcome to English in a Minute. Most people enjoy listening to music. But is this expression actually about songs and tunes?
Music to my ears.
Jonathan, I cannot believe we have to work over the weekend.
Did you not hear the news? The meeting for the project got canceled. No work this weekend after all.
Awesome! That is music to my ears. Now I'll have a chance to catch up on my latest book.
You say something is music to your ears when you hear good news or just news that makes you happy. Music is pleasant to listen to. That is where this expression comes from. In our example, learning that she didn't have to work on the weekend was music to Anna's ears. And that's English in a Minute.